Hey everybody, welcome back to Comic Crow. And the Bud Light boycott has been fascinating to watch because I'll be clear, at the start of this, I was like, I'm 50-50 on it. I don't know if this is actually going to go anywhere, but I think it's funny and I fully support it. For those of you who are completely unaware, the Bud Light customers have been outraged because Bud Light, for whatever reason, decided to hire Dylan Mulvaney as a spokesperson, as a brand ambassador, whatever you want to call it. And your typical Bud Light customer, they're really not in support of Dylan Mulvaney or gender ideology or the trans movement, but really more specifically, they don't like the idea of, trans issues constantly being forced into things that doesn't need to be involved in, right? Specifically beer, right? And I've said this before. Bud Light's already had this push into being a more diverse brand. They've had the Pride bottles for a while. They've hosted LGBTQ events, and this wasn't an issue for really anyone. I think your hardcore Bud Light customers, your typical Bud Light customers, they weren't boycotting, they weren't pitching a fit. It was just something Bud Light was doing, and I think most people kind of understood why they were doing it. Build up a larger customer base. They weren't insulting their customers with that. They weren't telling them eat shit. They weren't telling them that their culture sucked. They weren't doing any of that. But all of a sudden, with the Dylan Mulvaney thing, people found this woman who is, I guess, now the ex VP of marketing for Bud Light. They found clips of her giving an interview in which she talked about how Bud Light was a failing brand and they hired her to turn the ship around. It's funny that she said it was a failing brand because Bud Light was still the number one beer in the country. It was still the number one beer in the country. But in her interview, she kind of claimed that they were on the verge of just catastrophe. And specifically blamed the Bud Light customer base and their culture, calling it like frat boy culture, arguing that they need to grow past that. That nobody supports that anymore. And obviously, she was very wrong. Now, she is taking a leave of absence. This, to my understanding, does not mean she has been fired. It doesn't mean that they've terminated her contract. If anything, what this looks like to me is Bud Light is trying its hardest to sidestep all of the complaints, because you have people on the right and people on the left have joined in because, people on the right are upset. And so people on the left are enjoying it, and they're trying to convince Bud Light that they've made the right decision. Support trans rights. Don't support those bigoted, fascist, lower-income people that are your main core audience and customer base. The decision, I think, was just stupid. Do I think that this woman was involved in hastening whatever the hell this Dylan Mulvaney thing was about? Oh, 110%. But the idea that the CEO wasn't completely on board, that they didn't know exactly what they were doing, just seems stupid to me. They were doing a very slow drip feed by pushing into more progressive spaces and, offering up their beer to those customers, trying to bring them in to the Bud Light brand. I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that, but obviously Dylan Mulvaney is an entirely different story. It's a very big difference from, hosting an event so that you can specifically sell beer and hiring somebody like Dylan Mulvaney to be a brand ambassador, or whatever you want to call it. So do I think that this is specifically all this one's fault? No, absolutely not. I think this was a decision that Bud Light was fully aware of and fully supported, and they just weren't expecting to get this level of backlash. So when I see this, I'm like, guys, do not celebrate this, okay? Do not celebrate. This is what you need to celebrate. Anheuser-Busch, Bud Light's parent company, has lost roughly $5 billion in value. And we don't actually know just how bad this is for the company, because I think we only got like a report of like 2 days, like less than a week's worth of sales after this controversy hit, it's probably even worse. But, they're trying to tell their stockholders, their shareholders, hey, don't worry. This is all going to blow over. This is all going to go away. We have more than half of Americans supporting the boycott. To be clear, it's not over half are saying they will. They're just saying that they support it, which I respect. Okay, I support people's right to boycott things, even if I think they're being fucking stupid about it. So maybe you could argue that it's only 40% of people who actually are on board to boycott this brand. That's still too many. Okay, this is really bad for Bud Light, and they were not expecting this to happen. They were expecting the Dylan Mulvaney thing to hit. Maybe there would be some people upset, but it was just all going to blow over. It would all go away just like it's done every other time it's happened to any other brand. But Bud Light's core customers, their audience, the people that buy their beer, it's typically people in the lower income class. Those people also tend to be more conservative and are not on board with the gender ideology shit. This is just a stupid decision. Again, if don't take this as me, because you can watch the other content on this channel. I'm sure you're gonna say I'm being a transphobe or whatever, but don't take this as me saying Bud Light shouldn't, host an event where trans people are going to be attending and offer their beer or a pride event or whatever. Okay, it's beer. It's just beer. However, again, it's entirely different to take somebody like Dylan Mulvaney and make them the spokesperson for your brand, which means they are speaking to all of your customers. And again, what's going on with Bud Light right now is they're in between a rock and a hard place that they put themselves in. If they apologize to their core customer base, they are going to burn all the bridges in their eyes that they have built within the LGBTQ community, right? And they don't want to do that because that's still a sizable chunk of their buyers. If they don't apologize, they are actually going to lose their entire core customer base. So it's like they're in this position where they're trying to offer non-apologies to both groups. They're trying to do things quietly within the company to show that they're, okay, we sort of acknowledge what we did was wrong, so we're going to make this person take a leave of absence. We're not going to condemn them what they did. We're not going to publicly fire them. We're going to let them take a leave of absence and maybe just bring them right back, or funnel them into another one of our company. I'm just saying, Bud Light still has not learned its lesson. They have not learned a single lesson. And now that this boycott is getting really fucking bad for Bud Light, and they're actually losing money, although we don't know how bad it is just yet, although it looks to be pretty damn bad, we see people on the left trying to jump in and argue that, people boycotting Bud Light are stupid. These are the same people that harassed random individuals and got people fired because they simply wanted to play a video game. Now acting like not buying a beer for yourself is somehow this egregious and offensive act. It's really kind of dumb. But more than that, I mean, they've already kind of come out and said things like, hey, whatever you do, don't apologize. Don't turn away now. Because look, if they do, the left will attack them. And then look, maybe that customer base is smaller than your actual customer base, right? Maybe that group is smaller, and you can just say, hey, we'll have to write that off as a loss, even though we don't want to. We will be going back. If they do that, it's not just those customers. They will have to do with the entirety of mainstream media and a social media campaign against them. So really, they did this to themselves. They did it to themselves. There is no way around that. They put themselves in this position, and still they think they can get out of it by not addressing it directly. So, guys, this might seem like very good news. Do not start buying Budweiser products now, okay? They need to hurt a hell of a lot more until they understand to knock shit like this off. Apologize when you've made a mistake.